Hey guys, it's Jolene from Smith's Nature Friendly Farms. We are hanging out in the garden today and I want to talk to you guys about two cover crops that we're trialing this year. This is the first time for us that we've ever done a cover crop, and already I can see the benefits of this process. So I'm really excited to share this with you guys. We aren't fully through the test quite yet, but we are just going to take a look at what we've got growing on right now. All right, so this is our cover crop. We are currently growing cover crops throughout any of the empty beds. We do have a few spots that have carrots in them, or still some leftover eggplants that have been planted, or this row was just recently planted not too long ago. But most of this was planted in August with an intent to leave it straight through any frost or anything like that. They should make it, I think, here until about January or February. If they needed to be, I could terminate them right now and I would just be chopping the tops off and leaving everything else in the ground. But we've got two cover crops going on here, and with them we want to keep the hairy vetch, which is this first one. We want to keep it in here as long as we possibly can. So this one here is the hairy vetch. It's in the legume family, and the longer it is, the better it is. It's pulling, from what I've read, it's pulling nitrogen in from the air, which is exactly why we have planted this particular type of cover crop. It is also why we planted the daikon radish, and that is the second item that we have going on here. That is the daikon radish, and it's supposed to be pulling up nitrogen from the soil and the long root that it has. You can see there's a nice radish right there. So this guy is the daikon radish is pulling up the nitrogen from lower down the ground and bringing it up closer to the top of the soil where you want it for your next planting. The one caveat with the daikon radish is that some research has been done that doesn't quite show, or they weren't able to find, that it actually held the nitrogen after terminating it. So interesting there, because it's definitely, while it's growing, it seems to be bringing the nitrogen up to the soil, but the jury is still out on whether or not it will remain there after you terminate it. And of course you're going to need to terminate it in order to plant your products, whatever you're going to be growing in here. So let's get into my top 3 favorite things about growing a cover crop. So one of my favorite things about the cover crop so far has been in the fact that it is something that is staying and remaining planted in your garden. We get pretty heavy rains in Mississippi, and it has made this soil very compact. It's a very nice soil because it's a no-dig soil, but it can still get a ton of rain, which just makes it all very compacted, and not having anything planted isn't the best for it. So this, I can already tell the difference that where these guys are planted, the soil underneath is looser. It's not flat, and I'm going to give you a look. So this is my soil, all dry where the rain comes, pulls and washes all the nutrients away, all that fun stuff. But when you look under here, and especially around this, it's much looser. It's even darker, which is great because, you know, I think that's a sign of healthier soil. So I'm really happy with that. That has been excellent so far. My second favorite thing with this cover crop has been about weeds. It has definitely improved the number of weeds that are growing in these rows. Normally, the grass would have started to come up quite quickly already, and I would have weeds and I'd have to solarize. Solarize is putting all that heat on top of the soil, so it would it hurts your soil after a while. It dries it out, all that fun stuff. But by keeping it planted, the grass is struggling to come in. It's coming in a little bit on the sides, like you can see this guy here. And I'm able to get in there and I pull them out, and I feel like I'm slightly winning a battle with weeds. Now, I certainly have way better weeds in the no-till garden than I would in the field, but still, this makes a difference with even the no-till garden. No garden in Mississippi can say they can remain weed-free. The weeds here crawl, they fly in, they grow underneath, they can find a way in, I promise you. But the last one that's super important, and probably the most important reason of them all, is adding nitrogen to the soil. So these guys, this is why anybody, like, this has got to be, I would think, the number one reason why you would do a cover crop. the ability to organically add nitrogen into your soil, especially for me in a no-till garden where I don't want to use chemicals, where I don't want to dig up the soil. It's been amazing to think that this is going to really help me improve the nitrogen. We have fantastic pH, we have fantastic calcium, zinc, magnesium, potassium, all phosphorus. We have all our levels are fantastic, but the one thing I can't keep up with is nitrogen. And apparently that's the way it is in Mississippi. I don't know if that's the way it is in every state, but it's definitely the way it is here. And I don't want to throw a whole bunch of chemicals in the garden, and I definitely feel it when you see my produce, because my produce is much smaller than everybody else's. So I'm really hoping that this will massively help us. So we're going to leave these guys in the ground until January, February. Basically, I'm thinking until we get a really, really cold snap. And when Mississippi gets its really, really cold snap, I'm guessing it won't necessarily survive. Now, maybe it will. I don't know. Maybe it's super cold hardy, and I'm not truly aware. This is our first year growing it yet. But I'm assuming that these would be taken out by a hard frost. We're going to have light frost. I think they'll live through that. They're a winter cover crop, so I'm assuming they'll make through that, no problem. Once they've gone through that period of time, they may have seeded, and that's no problem to me. I'd rather have these guys as weeds than the grass or the grape weed that we get down here, so I'm not overly worried about it. The legumes, in order for them to get the best benefit, they need to be in the ground as long as possible, because they're taking it all in from the air, and they need some time to mature in order to get the nitrogen into the soil. Apparently legumes are the winner, so we're definitely going to hang in there and let the legumes, the hairy vetch, let it mature, I guess. And the types, again, of cover crops that we went with the daikon radish and the hairy vetch, and we got both those from Haas Tools. So if you're looking for a place to get it, it was very reasonable. Comes in a nice large package. You can get larger amounts so that you can do more area, and it was fantastic. So seeding rate, you can see, pretty good. So definitely has no seeding problem, germination problem. Awesome, guys. Well, that's it. That's our cover crop. I'll let you know we are doing a test. We are testing the nitrogen. We did a soil test with the nitrogen before, and we're doing a soil test afterwards to see what the results actually are, to see if we actually saw any benefits in nitrogen. And let me tell you, the first soil test, our nitrogen is really, really low. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any differences in that. So that's it, guys. That's all for now. Be friendly, be kind.